Amelia Hartwell had long grown used to being the quiet shadow trailing behind the rest of her family. In a house where beauty, charm, and flashy confidence were prized above all else, she was the one who never quite fit the mold. Her older sisters Liliana and Marissa were the darlings of society, glamorous, outspoken, always the center of attention. Their mother, Eleanor, adored them and praised them endlessly. Their father, Charles, tolerated them and ignored Amelia. But Amelia became the family's favorite target the day she turned 16 and received the diagnosis that shattered her world: infertile. The doctor's soft tone, the pamphlets he handed her, the tests proving her body might never carry a child, the memory haunted her for years. Instead of comforting her, her family whispered behind closed doors, pitying her as though she were a broken object. Eventually, the pity transformed into thinly veiled mockery. As the years passed, the Hartwell home turned cold toward her. Her sister's teasing sharpened with age. "Imagine being useless as a woman," Liliana would sneer. "Good thing your face is plain. At least no one will ever be disappointed," Marissa would add, sending them both into cruel giggles. Amelia endured it quietly, shrinking herself smaller each day, praying they'd lose interest. They never did. When the family's annual summer retreat approached that year, Amelia prayed they would forget her. But the Hartwell sisters had a new idea, one they considered their most brilliant joke yet. "We should send Amelia to the ranch house for a whole week," Marissa said as they lounged near the pool. "Let her see how a real man would handle her." Liliana howled with laughter. "You mean old Rowan? The rancher with the temper? He'll probably kick her out on day one. Imagine the humiliation." Perfect. Their mother didn't object. Their father didn't even look up from his newspaper. And so, without being asked, Amelia was informed of the plan. "You need time away," her mother said with false sweetness. "It'll be good for you," Liliana added. "You might actually learn something useful," Marissa snickered. Amelia had no say in her own fate. In her family, she rarely did. When the day came, they shoved a small suitcase into her hands and drove her through winding country roads to Rowan Ridge, ranch and isolated property belonging to a distant acquaintance of their father. The land stretched endlessly: dusty roads, tall grass, wooden fences, and beyond that, mountains fading into the horizon. Her sisters practically pushed her out of the car. "Try not to cry too much," Marissa mocked before they sped away, leaving her alone with her suitcase and her racing heart. Amelia swallowed hard as she looked at the large ranch house ahead. She expected hostility. Elias Rowan was rumored to be stern, solitary, and quick-tempered. A man who relied on himself and spoke little. The kind of presence that might swallow her whole. But she knocked anyway, because she had nowhere else to go. The door opened, revealing a tall man with sun-browned skin, steel-blue eyes, and a guarded expression. Elias Rowan was younger than she expected, but harder too, every line of him carved from work, wind, and responsibility. He studied her quietly, taking in her nervous stance, her trembling hands, her shame-laced eyes. "You must be the Hartwell girl," he said, with a voice like gravel and thunder. "Come in." Amelia stepped inside, bracing herself. She believed she had entered a place meant to humiliate her. What she didn't know, what her family could never imagine, was that this ranch, and this man, would become the beginning of her greatest transformation. The cruel joke had been set, but fate had its own plans. Amelia expected the ranch to be just another extension of her family's cruelty, a place where she would be mocked, belittled, or treated like unwanted baggage. She braced herself for harsh words and cold commands the moment she stepped over the threshold. But instead, Elias Rowan simply nodded toward the kitchen and said, "You look hungry. Sit." His voice was rough, but not unkind. His presence was imposing, but not threatening. For the first time in weeks, someone wasn't looking at her with contempt or amusement. They were simply acknowledging her existence. It startled her. As she sat at the old wooden table, Elias set down a plate of freshly baked bread and a jar of honey. "Eat," he said. Long drive. No sarcastic remarks. No questions about her family. No raised eyebrows at her timidness. It was unfamiliar. When she finished eating, Elias gave her a tour of the ranch. The land was vast, stretching far beyond what she had glimpsed from the road. Pastures rolled in green waves, dotted with grazing cattle. The barn stood tall, full of earthy scents, hay, wood, leather, the warm musk of animals. Horses huffed softly as they watched her pass. Amelia felt her body relax in ways she had forgotten were possible. There was no one watching her with judgment here. No one laughing behind her back. Just the wind, the animals, and the steady presence of the rancher walking beside her. After showing her the guest room, a simple but clean space with white curtains and a view of the sprawling fields, Elias handed her a pair of worn work gloves. "You're not here to be waited on," he said. "But you're also not here to be bothered. If you want to help, I'll show you how. If you want to rest, rest. Just don't lie to me." That's the only rule. No one had ever spoken to her with such straightforward respect before. Over the next few days, Amelia found herself slipping into a rhythm she never expected. Elias woke early, and she woke with him. He didn't treat her like a fragile doll or like a burden. He treated her as though she were capable of learning, capable of contributing. He taught her how to feed the horses, how to mend a fence, how to read the sky for weather signs, how to move quietly around cattle so they wouldn't startle. At first, she fumbled and apologized too much, her instincts shaped by years of being scolded for every mistake. But Elias would simply say, "Try again," and she would. Her confidence grew in the quiet moments, brushing a horse's mane, carrying buckets of water, listening to the soft hum of cicadas at dusk. She began to feel her lungs expand as though she had been suffocating her entire life and only now was learning to breathe. Most surprising was the silence. Not the suffocating silence of her family's dismissal, a peaceful silence. One that wrapped her gently, as if saying she was allowed finally to exist without explanation. At meals, Elias didn't pry into her past, though she caught him watching her, sometimes curious, maybe even protective, but never intrusive. He treated her with a quiet dignity she had never experienced. And in return, Amelia found herself opening up little by little. She told him about growing up in the shadows of her sisters, about the infertility diagnosis that ruined her standing in the family, about the joke that sent her here. Elias listened in stillness, his jaw tight, his eyes darkening not with judgment, but with a silent anger on her behalf. "You deserved better," he said simply. Those 3 words hit her harder than any insult her family had thrown at her, because deep inside she had never believed she deserved anything at all. By the end of the week, the ranch no longer felt like a punishment. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where she wasn't the broken daughter or the family disappointment, but simply Amelia, a girl rediscovering her strength, her worth, and her ability to stand tall. What she didn't realize was that this acceptance, this peace, was laying the foundation for something far deeper than either she or Elias expected. Their connection had begun, quietly, unexpectedly, unstoppably. The days drifted by in a rhythm. Amelia had never known steady, warm, predictable in the gentlest way. She woke with the sunrise, breathed air that felt cleaner than any she'd breathed before, and spent hour after hour learning the quiet strength of ranch life. But something else was growing just as quietly, a connection between her and Elias Rowan that neither had planned for, expected, or fully understood. It was subtle at first. A shared smile over a stubborn horse that refused to move. A moment of laughter when Amelia slipped in the mud and Elias, trying to help her up, nearly fell with her. The way he would glance over his shoulder to check if she was keeping up. The way she felt strangely safe walking beside him even in complete silence. But everything shifted the night the storm came. Clouds rolled over the mountains like dark ocean waves, heavy with electricity. Wind howled through the ranch, rattling the windows and shaking the old barn doors. Elias checked the cattle twice, then the horses, then the fences. Amelia watched him from the doorway, worry twisting her stomach until he returned with rain pouring off his hat and shoulders. "Bad one," he said, pulling off his jacket. "Power might go out," and it did. A crack of lightning split the sky, followed by thunder so loud it made the house tremble. A heartbeat later, the entire ranch fell into darkness. Elias lit an old oil lamp and set it between them on the kitchen table. Its golden glow softened his usually sharp features, made him look younger, gentler, almost vulnerable. Amelia wrapped her arms around herself, trying to calm her shaking. Storms never frightened her before, but tonight felt different, heavier. "You all right?" Elias asked. I think so," she whispered. "You don't have to be strong right now," he said simply. That sentence loosened something inside her. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever allowed her to be scared or tired or simply human. The storm raged outside, but inside the small pool of lamplight, a different kind of storm was unfolding. Without meaning to, they slipped into a deep conversation, one that peeled back layers neither had expected to reveal. Amelia told him about her diagnosis, the cruel jokes, the years of being treated like an inconvenience. She didn't cry, but her voice trembled. Elias didn't interrupt. He listened with a tension in his jaw, as if each word hurt him personally. "They shouldn't have done that to you," he finally said. "No one deserves to be treated that way." Amelia looked down, heat rising behind her eyes. "Sometimes I think maybe I deserved it. Maybe if I were different." "Stop," Elias said firmly. "You did nothing wrong." The certainty in his tone made her breath hitch. She wasn't used to someone defending her, especially not a man like him. And then, slowly, Elias opened up too. He talked about losing his parents young, inheriting the ranch before he was ready, and carrying the responsibility of a life he hadn't chosen but learned to love. He admitted he had built walls so high that most people never got close enough to see past them, except her. "I don't know how it happened," he said quietly, "but having you here, it doesn't feel like I'm alone anymore." The words hung between them, charged like the lightning outside. They didn't touch. They didn't move closer. They didn't speak for a long moment. But something undeniable bridged the space between them, something warm, fragile, and frighteningly real. When the storm finally eased, Amelia realized two things. She didn't want to leave the ranch, and she didn't want to lose whatever this growing bond was. But she also feared something just as deeply. What if he didn't feel the same? What if he saw her as temporary, just a guest, a burden, or a fleeting distraction brought by chance? She didn't know then that Elias was wrestling with the exact same fear. Their hearts had crossed a line in the dark one they could no longer uncross. When the week finally came to an end, Amelia felt a heaviness settle over her heart, one she didn't want to acknowledge. She had grown used to the soft rustle of the ranch grass, the quiet mornings beside Elias, the steady rhythm of chores, and the calm that settled in her chest each night. The ranch had become something she had never known, a safe place. Leaving it felt like tearing open a wound that had only just begun to heal. Her sisters arrived in their expensive SUV with sunglasses, manicured nails, and smug smiles. They honked twice impatient and loud, shattering the peaceful stillness of Rowan Ridge Ranch. When Amelia stepped outside, with her small suitcase, Marissa rolled down the window. "Well," she sneered, "still alive? I thought the rancher would have tossed you into the cattle pen by now." Liliana cackled. Maybe he didn't even notice she was there. Elias stepped out onto the porch at that exact moment, arms crossed. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes lingered on Amelia a little too long. enough to make both sisters stop laughing for a brief, flickering second. Amelia forced a smile, a brittle one, and whispered her goodbye. Elias nodded once, his gaze steady, almost protective. "You take care, Amelia," he said. His tone hit her harder than she expected. But she climbed into the car anyway, and the moment the door shut, her sister's laughter resumed. "Did you see the way he looked at her? Like she was a lost puppy. Or maybe he felt sorry for her. Ranchers love damaged animals. Their voices were knives." Amelia stared out the window, trying to hold on to the peace she found on the ranch, but with every mile, it slipped further away, buried beneath the noise of her sister's cruelty. When they reached the Hartwell estate, everything was the same as she had left it, lavish, cold, and suffocating. Her mother gave her a once-over as she walked in. "You look, well, rustic," Eleanor said with a forced smile. "What did you even do there?" "Work," Amelia replied quietly. Her father grunted something unintelligible and walked past her. For a few days, Amelia tried to settle back into her old life. But nothing felt right anymore. The house seemed louder, the criticism sharper, the air colder. The ranch had awakened something inside her: strength, independence, hope. All of it clashed violently with the familiar ugliness she had returned to. Then came the signs, the dizziness, the morning nausea, the sudden sensitivity to smells, and, worst of all, the missed cycle. At first, Amelia dismissed it. It wasn't possible. She had been told she was infertile, medically incapable of carrying a child. So she told herself it was stress, exhaustion, nerves. Anything but the impossible truth. But when the symptoms grew stronger, she found herself trembling in a cold clinic room, waiting for the results of a test she was certain would confirm her fears or her disbelief. The doctor entered with a gentle smile. "Amelia, you're pregnant." The words echoed in her mind, impossible and overwhelming. Tears filled her eyes, shock, confusion, fear, joy, all tangled tightly together. Her hands shook as she asked the only question that mattered. "It's real? Really real?" "Yes," the doctor said. "Your body is doing exactly what it should." But her joy evaporated the moment she stepped through the front door of the Hartwell estate. Her sisters didn't ask how she was, only who the father was. They accused her of lying about her infertility. They accused her of doing it for attention. They accused her of making up the entire story. "You? Pregnant?" Liliana scoffed. "Please. You probably don't even know who the father is," Marissa smirked. "Maybe it's that rancher. Pathetic." Their words stabbed her. But the wound wasn't to the pregnancy. It was the realization that bringing a child into that house would destroy both her and the baby. That night, long after everyone had gone to sleep, Amelia packed her small suitcase again. Her heart was pounding, her eyes burning, but her resolve was firm. She was done being mocked, done being belittled, done being invisible. There was only one place she could go, one place where she felt safe, respected, and seen. She was going back to the ranch, back to Elias Rowan. With the miracle growing inside her, she stepped into the night, leaving the house of cruelty behind forever. Amelia had never imagined she would sit in a doctor's office again, trembling with anticipation, fear, and hope all tangled inside her like knotted threads. Pregnancy was a word she had once buried deep inside her heart, a dream she had carefully folded away like a fragile paper crane she dared not open again. When the doctor delivered the news, "You're pregnant," the world around her seemed to tilt. Amelia pressed her hand to her abdomen, the same stomach she had once cursed for failing her. Now it held something impossible, something miraculous, something that didn't fit into any version of her reality. She walked home feeling weightless and terrified at the same time. A child, her child. She replayed the doctor's words again and again, half afraid that if she stopped repeating them, the miracle might vanish. But the moment she stepped into the Hartwell estate, the warmth of that discovery was smothered beneath the cold, mocking air of her family. Her mother barely looked up from her glass of wine. "You're late. I hope you didn't embarrass us at that clinic." Liliana was the first to notice the folded paper in Amelia's trembling hands. "What's that? Another pity prescription?" She snatched it before Amelia could stop her. Her eyes scanned the words, and her laughter exploded through the entryway. "Well, would you look at this? The infertile sister is suddenly fertile," Marissa gasped dramatically. "Oh, don't tell me. Amelia trapped some poor man with a fake pregnancy. They circled her like vultures. Who's the father? Is it someone from town? Or that rancher? Is that why you wanted to stay longer?" Amelia tried to speak, but their jeers drowned her out. "You probably don't even know which man it was," Liliana hissed, "unless you made the whole thing up." "Wouldn't put it past you," Marissa added. Their words, sharp, poisonous, hit every old wound she carried. It was like being 16 again, helpless, humiliated, small. Except now she wasn't alone. There was a life inside her, a heartbeat protected beneath her ribs. And she knew without a doubt her child would not grow up under this roof of cruelty. For the next 2 days the house became unbearable. Her mother complained that Amelia was trying to steal attention. Her father muttered that mistakes happen and the family should manage the scandal quietly. Her sisters whispered loudly in hallways about her being pathetic, irresponsible, unbelievable. But the worst moment came when Liliana snapped, "You're not even fit to be a mother." For a brief, searing second, Amelia almost believed her. That evening, Amelia locked herself in her room, sat on the bed, and cried not because she felt broken, but because she knew she deserved better. And the tiny life inside her deserved better too. As she wiped her tears, she whispered into the quiet, "I will protect you. I promise." Slowly her thoughts drifted to Elias, his calm voice, his steady hands, his kindness real, quiet, unconditional. The way he had looked at her as if she weren't a burden but someone worth keeping safe. He didn't know she was pregnant. He didn't know she had left. He didn't know the storm she was walking through. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. The ranch was the only place where she had ever felt safe. Elias was the only person who had ever treated her like she mattered. And if she stayed in this house, this prison of shame, she would lose that fragile peace she had finally found. So long after midnight, she began packing. She folded her clothes with trembling hands, tucked the doctor's note inside her pocket, and slipped out of the house like a runaway ghost. With every step down the hallway, the weight of her decision grew lighter. When she opened the front door, the night air felt like freedom. She didn't know exactly what waited for her at the ranch. She didn't know what Elias would say. But she knew she had to go back. She owed it to herself and to the miracle that defied every painful lie her family ever told her. And so, with nothing but hope and a small suitcase, Amelia set out toward the only place that had ever felt like home. The moon was high when Amelia finally arrived at the dusty road leading to Rowan Ridge Ranch. Her heart pounded with each step, exhaustion creeping through her bones. The night wind carried the familiar sense of hay and earth scents that made her eyes sting with relief. She clutched her small suitcase to her chest, whispering encouragement to herself and to the tiny life inside her. The porch light was still on, casting a warm glow across the front steps. Elias always left it on. He said it kept away critters. Amelia hoped, just this once, it could guide her back to safety too. She hesitated before knocking. Would he be angry she left so abruptly? Would he think she was weak? Would he see her pregnancy as a burden? Her breath trembled as her knuckles tapped the door. It opened almost instantly. Elias stood there, tall and steady, his eyes widening in shock before settling into a deep, unreadable expression. He looked at her suitcase, then at her tired eyes, and something softened in his face, something protective and dangerously close to tender. "Amelia?" His voice was low, rough with concern. "What happened?" The question broke the dam. Tears spilled over her cheeks as she whispered, "I had nowhere else to go." Elias stepped aside without hesitation, motioning her inside. "Come in. You're safe here. Safe." She had longed to hear that word more than she realized. Inside the warm kitchen, he sat her down, poured her water, and waited. He didn't pressure her with questions or assumptions. He simply stayed beside her, arms crossed loosely, jaw tense with silent worry. Finally, she took a shaky breath. "I'm pregnant." The words floated in the air like a fragile confession. Her eyes flicked upward, bracing for the recoil, for judgment, disbelief, or fear. But Elias didn't move. His brows lifted slightly, not in shock, but in careful calculation, as if piecing together what she wasn't saying. "When did you find out?" he asked her. "Yesterday. And your family?" Amelia swallowed hard. "They were awful. They always are. They don't believe me. They said horrible things. They said I can't be a mother." Her voice cracked at the last word. "I couldn't stay. Not for me and not for my baby." Elias's jaw tightened, anger darkening his expression, not at her, but at the cruelty she'd endured. "Amelia," he said firmly, "they're wrong." She blinked through tears. "But what if they're not?" "What if?" "They are wrong," he repeated, leaning forward. "You're stronger than you think. And I've seen you with animals. With people. You care. You try. That's more than most parents start with." His certainty wrapped around her like a blanket. Slowly, her breathing steadied. Her hands stopped shaking. She felt anchored. After a long, quiet moment, Elias spoke again, softer now. "Do you want to stay here?" Her heart thudded. "If it's not too much." "I don't want to trouble you." Elias exhaled, almost incredulous. "You're not trouble." "You never were." Something in his tone made her chest tighten, a warmth she didn't yet dare to name. He continued, "You can stay as long as you need. I won't let anyone hurt you." "Or the baby." Those words cracked something open inside her. For months, years, she had carried burdens alone. Now, for the first time, someone else was standing beside her, ready to shoulder the weight. Elias stood and moved to the stove. "You look pale. You need food." She watched him cook, feeling a strange, delicate comfort settle over her. The ranch felt different now, not just peaceful, but full of possibility. As she ate, he sat across from her, silent but present. And as the stars glittered over the dark ranch fields, Amelia realized something vast and terrifying and wonderful. She wasn't alone anymore. Not at all. For days after Isabella's revelation at the family estate, the house pulsed with disbelief. Whispers replaced conversations. Her cousins traded glances like they were passing secret messages. Her mother followed her with a stare that blended fear and fury, while her father's shock turned into a stiff, unreadable silence. The only one unaffected by the sudden storm was Mateo, the child who giggled without understanding the tornado of judgment spinning around him. But amidst all this, one man carried a secret that weighed heavier than all their accusations combined: Rafael Ortega, the rancher. His arrival at the estate was quiet, but his presence was anything but. Dust clung to his boots from the long ride, and the sun framed him like a silhouette of truth stepping out of the wilderness. When Isabella saw him standing at the gate, her heart leaped, but not entirely from joy. It was the look in his eyes, steady, determined, yet shadowed by something unsaid. Her mother was the first to confront him. "You," she hissed, "you filled her head with lies. And now you dare step into my house?" Raphael didn't flinch. "I came because she deserves answers," he said, his voice calm but powerful. "All of you do." They led him inside, some reluctantly, others with a kind of greedy anticipation. Finally, the rancher would speak. Isabella followed silently, Mateo in her arms, his small fingers tangled in her hair. Inside the drawing room, Raphael looked at Isabella, not her family, and spoke. "Bella, I should have told you everything the moment you stepped onto my ranch." Her father cleared his throat sharply. "Told her what, exactly?" Raphael inhaled deeply. His gaze moved briefly to Matteo, who smiled at him as if recognizing something familiar. When Raphael finally spoke, his words shattered every assumption in the room. "Matteo isn't just her son," he said steadily. "He's mine too." A gasp rippled across the room. Isabella's mother staggered back as if struck. Several cousins murmured under their breath, but Isabella froze completely. "What?" she whispered, unable to trust her own voice. "Raphael, what are you saying?" He stepped closer, gently, always gentle with her. "I knew it the moment I held him after he was born. His eyes, his expressions, even his dimples. But that's not the real truth I owe you." He paused, gathering courage. "I never treated you like a joke, Isabella. Not for a moment. But your family didn't send you to my ranch by accident." Her father stiffened. Her mother looked suddenly pale. Isabella could feel the room tilt around her. "What do you mean?" she asked, gripping Raphael's sleeve like a lifeline. He met her gaze with that same unwavering sincerity he had shown her the night she first arrived. "They didn't send you away because they thought you were useless." He turned toward her parents. "They sent you to me because your father knew I would take care of you. Because he knew something none of you did." The room fell silent. Isabella felt her heartbeat jumping like it wanted the truth faster than her mind could process it. "Your father," Raphael continued, "came to my ranch a day before you arrived. He told me you were broken, scared, and alone. He begged me to protect you. He said he couldn't do it himself, not without losing everything." Isabella turned slowly toward her father. He kept his eyes lowered, guilt etched into the lines of his face. Raphael's voice softened. "I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you, Bella, but I did. And I wasn't supposed to tell you that Matteo is my son. But I can't let you face this alone." Isabella's breath trembled. She looked at Matteo, then at Raphael, her past, present, and future clashing in the space of a heartbeat. Everything she thought she knew was wrong, and the truth was only beginning to unfold. The confession hung in the air like a storm cloud refusing to break. The room was silent except for Matteo's soft babbling, a gentle reminder that life was far simpler for those too young to understand the weight of choices made by adults. Isabella stood trembling, her mind racing to stitch together everything she had just learned. Her father, her stern, unapproachable father, was the first to break. "I sent you away," he murmured, his voice heavy with regret, "because I believed I had failed you. The doctors told us the problem was severe. I thought you needed a place where pressure couldn't crush you, where someone kind would guide you back to yourself. Raphael wasn't chosen as a joke, Isabella. He was chosen because I trusted him with what I valued most." Her mother stared at him in disbelief. "You never told me this." He shook his head. "Because you were too focused on the shame of her infertility, too obsessed with what society whispered. I made a mistake too. I hid the truth from you both." Isabella's world tilted. "So you all decided my fate? You decided where I belonged?" she whispered, hurt coiling inside her. Raphael stepped forward, voice low and steady. "No, Bella, not all of us decided. I didn't agree to control your life, I agreed to protect it. I didn't know you would come shattered. I didn't know you would change everything." His eyes locked onto hers, and in them she saw the truth she had feared and longed for, the truth she needed. "I fell in love with you," he said. "Not because your father asked me to watch over you, but because you walked into my world and lit it alive. Matteo wasn't part of any plan. He was a miracle. Our miracle." Her heart pounded. The word miracle echoed in her chest. Her mother, always cold, suddenly softened. She stepped toward Isabella with trembling hands. "My daughter," she whispered, "I said cruel things because I was afraid. Afraid you would never know the joy I thought you'd been denied. But I was wrong. Matteo, he's proof that I knew nothing. The apology, unexpected, fragile, unlocked something inside Isabella. The bitterness began to melt. Not fully, not instantly, but enough for her to breathe again. She looked at Raphael, the man who had been her sanctuary when she was broken, her strength when she doubted herself, and the father of her son, the son she was told she could never have. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Raphael took her hand, his thumb brushing the back of hers with a tenderness that steadied her heart. "That depends on you," he said. "You can stay here with your family, or you can come home, with me, with our son. I'll fight for you either way." The word home struck her. Because home wasn't walls or bloodlines, it was where she was truly seen. She turned to her father. "Can you accept Matteo?" "And Raphael?" Her father nodded resolutely, tears she had never seen before glistening in his eyes. "I lost you once because of pride. I won't lose you again." Her mother nodded too, wiping her eyes. Isabella exhaled a long, trembling breath. Then she looked at Raphael. "I came back here searching for answers," she said. "But home is with you." Raphael's eyes softened with relief. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. Matteo squealed happily between them, unaware that his tiny, joyful presence had rebuilt an entire family. When they returned to the ranch days later, the sun dipped low behind the hills, casting the land in gold. It felt like the world itself was welcoming her back. Isabella held Matteo tightly as Raphael opened the gate. "This time," Raphael whispered, kissing her forehead, "you're not arriving broken. You're arriving complete." And for the first time in years, Isabella believed it.